Hey guys, it's Gunnar Deatherage. Welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, I am a Project Runway fashion designer turned DIY creator, and today's video is really exciting because we are helping a very special girl named Leila. Now, Leila has had a really tough go the last couple of years. Her mom reached out to me and told me some of their story, and at 4 years old, she was diagnosed with a really rare form of cancer, and I'm gonna read this off so that I don't mess this up. It is B-cell acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Make-A-Wish reached out to them and they said, hey, if we could give her anything in the world, what would she want? Leila wanted to go to Disney. She wanted to go during Halloween, and she wanted to meet Sally from The Nightmare Before Christmas. Now, if you know me, you know that I love Halloween.
There's always Halloween in my soul.
It's like the time of year where I feel like I come alive. My inner costume designer, which is like always screaming to come out, gets to kind of have a moment, and Leila has no idea that we're making the dress for her. They are leaving for Disney in exactly 3 days. So I have got to get this done on top of a couple other projects, and I will be racing. I want this to be the most luxe, cool, movie-worthy version of the dress. And I found this cute little figurine doll that is such an elevated version of Sally, like if she were to wear a ball gown. I also want to say I understand that this is like a kind of wild Halloween costume, so I'm gonna take you guys through the process of like the spending, the buying, as well as the making of it, just so that you guys can understand kind of the ins and outs of it. I'm actually a little nervous about getting this done in time. I am the king of procrastinating, and I think we're gonna see whether or not I can pull this off. Let's talk about the anatomy of the dress. The bodice has got a center yellow V, while the sides are purple, and it's got a sheer drapey bit on the top with a medallion and a black and white drapey sleeve. The upper skirt is a black zigzag pattern that's got a white spiderweb motif that's going to create that kind of spooky element. The lower skirt is really what makes it feel like Sally, with multiple pieces in yellow, pink, blue, and purple that are going to have a lot of overlays and patchwork together to create a very full ball gown. To finish it off, I'm going to add 16 black and white godets into the bottom of the skirt. In total, it's going to take over 100 different pattern pieces to bring this gown to life. I'm about to go fabric shopping. The goal is to find incredible fabric and to, I don't know, touch and feel things and find what inspires me for this fun project for her. I'm thinking that I'm probably going to have to make all of the details myself. Like, I can't imagine I'm gonna find these specialty fabrics laying around. Okay, we're in a Joanne. Now I'm looking for something that's soft, feels good on the skin, because nobody likes scratchy clothing, especially kiddos. Okay, so these are some fun colors. I'm not sure that they fit the kind of Sally vibe that we're going for, but I think we will find it. Okay, we got fabrics. I didn't find everything I need in here. I got a lot of it. And now we are going to keep on shopping. I picked up some of these velvet covered buttons that I'm going to use on the bodice, and then I made my way over to the trim store to get some velvet ribbon that I'm going to be using for some details. I also picked up a few different mesh options that I'm going to be using for overlays. I have got a lot of goodies. I'm on the hunt to get some rhinestones. I think I'm going to use them for the polka dots. I think the rhinestones will just kind of like be a very elevated version of a small polka dot. And here is my bounty from a very full day of fabric shopping. I'm going to be using the bright colored satins as the bases, and then all of the black meshes as my overlays. Rather than drawing stripes onto the fabric, I'm going to be using these velvet trims to stitch them on to create the stripes. I really made it hard on myself because none of the panels repeat, and this circle skirt has 4 different panels, which means that every one needed to be patterned individually. In an effort to try to stay a little bit organized, I decided to use some colored pencils and label out what the pieces were going to be, and that way once I cut them apart and add my seam allowance back in, I could actually put them back together. Once I had all the patterns laid out, then it was time to start the what felt like never-ending process of cutting. I will say using the rotary is such a game changer. If you have a bad wrist or if you just like hate cutting, it makes it so much faster and easier. I also did all of my flat lining, which joins the overlay and the satin as I was cutting so that nothing got confused. If you were already a part of my Patreon or my YouTube membership communities, that means that you saw this video already and your support helped make this video happen. Those communities help fund these kind of projects because they can be incredibly expensive, which we will get into in this project as well, because I definitely spent more money than I was planning to on this one. If you've been looking for a way to either get into sewing, find new sewing patterns, support me and help me by supporting other people, then that's a great place to do it. And also it's just kind of a fun place to be. I feel like I always end up in this space where I put things off. I'm just like a really, really good procrastinator. I think there's always this moment in the day where I'm like, do I need another coffee? Is it now?
But then I think, better not.
I think being on Project Runway has like trained my brain to just like love stress. One of the things that I loved about the actual figurine is that there was this kind of like hand-drawn zigzag stripe, and because I'm going for this higher end feel on the whole garment, I really wanted to kind of find another way to do it. And then I found this trim, and it goes back and forth, and it kind of reminds me of like a French garden gate, and I do really feel like it's a good fit for this stripe. So I'm starting to see the pieces come together, and it's just like the vision's coming to life. It's finally starting to happen. Okay, we're taking a little break. We're gonna go get some revolving sushi, which I feel like feels a little irresponsible because it takes some time. Like, I like the trash sushi, like covered in sauces, because, I don't know, I'm from the South.
He literally gets the Texas roll.
I do get a Texas roll when we go. Hey, with your soda. Okay, back in the studio is a total mess. Let's make it even messier. My goal tonight is to finish all layers of the skirt, and I'm going to try to put all of those little black and white godets into the bottom. A godet is a small triangular piece that's inserted into something to make it flare out for ornamentation. Okay, I have got all of the skirt pieces done, like the patchworky ones, and now it's time to start working on the godets, which admittedly are my least favorite part of every dress that have godets on it. I have a lot of these little black and white things. I'm gonna do a black, white, probably black. I'll like do every other one, and these will get sewn together to create like little ruffles, and then they'll go in every single seam. One down, only 15 to go. I think one of the key elements of this dress that make it feel so cool to me are the spider webs that go right below the waist of the dress. They're this really cool zigzag, and actually the black ends in zigzags all the way around, and it's gonna be a lot of pattern pieces. And I'm not a painter. I actually am dating a really incredible painter, so I'm gonna seek out a little bit of Chris's help to see if he can do this for me. I need as many hands on this project as I can get so that we can get it finished. Now that I have all of the black pieces sewn together, we can kind of start working on how we're going to be adding the motif to them to kind of give that spiderweb effect. Chris is over here trying to figure out a solution for the cobwebs or the spiderwebs. So we tried painting them on here. We don't like it. It just doesn't feel as expensive because the fabric is absorbing the paint, so it doesn't look like a solid white. So now Chris is going to maybe use this machine and do a little embroidery. Yeah, maybe some decorative stitching, so we'll see. Say a prayer for us. It is late. At this point, Chris didn't like the way it looked. I felt bad, but I really didn't like the way that it looked. The fabric was not cooperating, and it was like a little bit of panic because like this is a really big element of the dress, and I think one of the elements I was relying on for the dress to feel so cool. So here's where we are. These are all the different options of stitching. I think this is like by far my favorite. I also don't mind this one here. So Chris spent about 3 to 4 hours just doing the embroidery, making sure that we had this kind of spiderweb element, and it really, really made a big impact. I think that it really brings in this kind of crafty element that the rest of the dress is also going to embrace.
I'm taking over his video vlog for Patreon to tell you that I really turned that out. I did that thing. It looks good.
In lieu of polka dots on the pink, I'm gonna be using some crystals that I picked up from one of my favorite shops downtown. And they're like just large enough and like super shiny to be a really great polka dot. I waited until the very end to apply the polka dots so that they could dry overnight while we were getting some much needed rest so we could start the next day nice and fresh. Welcome back to my messy studio. I did decide to buy a pattern. I'm gonna use this for the bodice of it. It kind of has this off the shoulder thing I think I can alter. Time crunches mean that you need to work smarter and not harder. I started the bodice by cutting out all of the pieces from the pattern that I bought that I'm going to be using, and then I added in the new lines for the seams I want to create, and then I cut them and added in my seam allowance. As I was like walking through the studio, I realized I was like, I don't really have something for the top part of the dress, which is like obviously a focal point of the dress, and I was like, what can I use for this? And then I remembered I have been holding on to this like weird vintage fabric for years, and I think it is going to be the perfect thing to overlay. Let me show you guys. Isn't this so spooky and dainty and beautiful and kind of gives the feeling of the other? I was definitely running out of time and cutting and sewing this bodice together so fast, and I thought I had everything in place. And again, I realized I needed to go back to the Joann. I feel like I should probably just rent a space in Joann and like put a little cot there so that I can start sleeping there so I can just get my supplies faster. So I am off to Joann Fabrics so that I can get some tulle netting because I forgot it. And this skirt absolutely needs a little bit of volume. I think I'm gonna use this for the part that wraps around, but I also, look what I created. These are the little black and white striped straps that go around. So like this sheer layer will kind of go over it, and then this will like peekaboo out at the bottom. I think it's gonna be really cute. I also did it on some elastic, so it has a little stretch, but it looks just like the dress, and I'm really excited. The skirt's gonna need some volume to fill it out, so I'm gonna cut all of this black tulle at the same length so we can gather it together into the petticoat. Gathering turns the edge of a piece of fabric into a bunch of small folds that are held together by a thread close to the edge. Gathering makes the fabric shorter where the fabric is stitched. Okay, gonna feel like a ballerina. No back, obviously, but I think this is gonna add some nice fluff. It is funny that I'm a fully grown adult and my job is to play in dresses. Now it's time to attach the bodice to the skirt so that we can have a full dress. Okay, so all I have left to do is add the buttons and then the little brooch at the top, and then it is ready to ship off. I'm actually so excited. Okay, so let me tell you what it's like to actually work with me in the studio. I lose things all the time, and it's because I am a messy creator. If I could just find the buttons, anything really, I just am like, I have made such a mess. I feel like in order to be a creative, you have to make a mess sometimes. And like, that is exactly what I've done. I was moving at a supersonic speed and I just could not find the things that I had just laid down. Where is it? What if we had an earthquake? You know what would solve this? Another cup of coffee. Like you should just put everything down and like run to Starbucks. If I do not find the buttons to sew on, I'm gonna miss the cutoff, and it's gonna be there like the day of the actual event, which freaks me out because I need it to be there a day before, because if it doesn't fit, there won't be time to fix it. Okay guys, I finally found the buttons and the brooch. They were buried. Just like, sigh of relief. The very last thing I need to do is sew on the brooch to the front and then attach the buttons down the center, because they really just kind of tie the entire look together. And also I'm going to sew in one of my labels. Now I know they may want to cut this out because labels can be a little scratchy, but I just can't send off a dress that I've worked this hard on without attaching my name into the back of it. I was so excited when I held this dress up. Like when you finally see the full version of it together. It almost makes me want to cry saying it. First of all, it's been a really long day and a half, but I just like know she's gonna feel really special in this. So let's pack her up and ship her off to Florida. Okay, I quickly packed the box and made sure that it was going to be pretty when she opened it, but now it's time for me to like get everything out the door and get on my way to FedEx. Okay, I am frantically trying to get to FedEx in time. The cutoff is in 5 minutes. I'm 6 minutes away. I have to get this dress out today. Well, I missed the FedEx deadline and I was like devastated because I worked so hard to get to FedEx in time and it just didn't happen. And in order to get it there in time, it cost another $250 in just shipping. Right now feels like an appropriate time to do a little bit of a cost breakdown. So these labors of love can be quite expensive, which is why I'm so thankful for the memberships and for you guys, because you make these projects possible. I spent about $110 in colorful satin fabrics, $107 for mesh and lace overlays, $30 in crystals, $10 in glue, $60 in velvet trims and buttons, $25 in tulle nettings, and then that whopping $250 in shipping, making the total $592. I feel really lucky to be able to do projects like this, but I do feel like I need to give you guys a realistic view of what it takes financially to bring them to life in the case that you guys want to create something like this for yourselves in the future. And now it's time for you guys to see her reaction. And she's not the most reactive, she's a shy little baby, but when you see her spinning in this dress and come alive, that is the reward that I needed from this project, and I hope you guys love it.
You open it. You want me to help you open it? Okay. Are you ready? So excited about your big Disney trip. I hope the Sally dress from Nightmare Before Christmas makes your trip even more magical. Sending you so much love. Gunnar. You ready? Oh, wait, look at your dress. Is it beautiful? Does that look beautiful? Oh my God. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, Sally, are you here to see me?
Even though I was nervous about the dress making it there on the day of, she put this on and it fit her like a glove. Every measurement worked out correctly. You could tell how confident she was in it by the way she walked.
Hi. Stitching of your dress. Did you do it yourself? You know my dear Sally is the best seamstress I've ever met. She even made the costume that I'm wearing today.
I loved seeing all the photos from their trip and seeing the whole family dressed up as Nightmare Before Christmas. Moments like this are the reason that I love to create dresses, and I think it really gives meaning back into the projects. And I think it's really important now that we put as much positivity back out into the world as possible. So until next time, bye guys.